there we go. We looked at 3 separate prompts. How many of you, your brain kind of hurts? Because you're like, that's a lot of thinking that went into this and having to code switch between different ones. It is a lot, but what you notice is it gives you those approaches to show what you know, and especially getting ready to take this test next week. It will be that way of going, all right, maybe this shows me some of the deficiencies and where I need to sort of prep a little bit better. Did you notice that that even though there are 3 very different questions, certain pieces of evidence maybe crept back into your thinking in each one, because even though they're different, there's really only so many meanings the book has. And so some of those key scenes are key because they approach multiple answers. They can help to support multiple thematic approaches there. So we looked at the past events one. Did everyone focus on Gatsby? I would imagine it would be hard to focus on many other characters in this book. Did we all kind of focus on his struggles with Daisy and how he's contending with this? I would agree that's probably the best approach for this novel. If you look at kind of where I went with it, I kind of focused on, first, that he loves this Daisy of the past. He does not love the Daisy that is in front of him right now. We see things that point to that. Gatsby's insistence that he can repeat the past. The way he clarifies what it is he expects this relationship to become. That she will simply realize she's never loved Tom, come back with him, and even he sees their marriage as happening on her parents' steps in Louisville, which is absurd. But in his mind, that's where things came. That's where it came from. We see it in something as simple as the broken clock. At their meeting back together, this broken clock helps us to kind of connect. He thinks he can repeat the past because time hasn't moved on for him. Or more importantly, he has not allowed himself to move past this. And we also see that idea of, marriage. The green light helps us to see that view of how he is. And, we see that moment he gets the girl, but he can't look past the enchanted object that he's lost. And so it shows us he's not really in love with the person that's in front of him. We see him reaching out multiple times to try to get this, and it helps us to sell this impossibility of it. When, if you've ever done a little game where you crush somebody's head from far, like, you're not, it's just that perception of reality thing. But we see him 2 separate times reach out in this way for a Daisy. Specifically, we didn't talk much about this. When in chapter 8, when he retells his past to Nick, he mentions that he goes back to Louisville after the war. And that as he leaves Louisville, he reaches out on the back of the train to try to get her back. But in understanding that he's reaching out to this city that's gone, he also understands that he has lost the freshest and the best part of this relationship forever. And so you think about everything in this book was to regain this girl, but the whole time he's realized, I'm never going to have what I had before. It's always going to be a lesser quality of it. You kind of go, oh, that sucks. Anyway, when I went to meetings, I looked at that stubborn insistence that he has, that he can do things, that romantic idealism that we see, and also this chasing of the impossible. When we got down here, I was able to get there on these 2, I didn't on the last one, to put a thesis together. And when we look at doing this thesis, we know when we write an argument, we want our thesis statement to clearly answer the question and provide that roadmap forward. What's that train of logic? It's not quite, I know I'm not doing it. My brain's just skipping. It's all right. We want to put that kind of logical progression into our thesis so that a reader can see where we're going. So I tried to put that together here. Identified the work I'm going to talk about, which character, what are they contending with the past, his struggle to reattain his former love, and then I talked about what's the meaning that's present. It helps us to get started. Now, do I really think that after I did this, I would change absolutely nothing and this would be my essay? No, that's the beauty of brainstorming. You're getting your ideas out, and then once they're out, it gives you a map to start to follow and maybe change as you go. But it helps to keep you from just kind of writing straight brain to hand and your ideas sort of become like spaghetti. They're all over the place. There's no control. On the ideal view, I kind of approached it there with like how he is. How did everybody else look at that one? What were some of the ideal views of the world that you came up with? Oh, okay.
No, if I did it right.
That's okay. What did you say?
I just talked about his, like, basically how his worldview kind of changed throughout the summer because, how he was disgusted, like, by New York by the end. Because at the beginning he was like, oh, well, everybody comes from different circumstances. I can't judge anybody. And so I just talked about, like, ideally that's what he wanted to do, but then that didn't work out, basically.
I think that's a great read. And remember, the book is told as Nick has moved on from this. So he's even talking about a past for himself. So yeah, that's a totally valid view there. Even though I went with Gatsby, you could write a great essay about how Nick changes within the course of the narrative, for sure. Anybody write about something different?
I think I went too broad about this one.
That's all right.
But I went towards more of the lost generations, like desire for material wealth to replace lost ideals.
I think that's not a bad one. I think that broad thing is where you're going to hit because you're almost going to end up talking about multiple characters, never really getting to dig into the depth of one. And the question kind of looked at how a character deals with the past. So yeah, that might be where it's a little too broad for what they're looking for. And then of course, the last one we looked at here, this illuminating incident one is a great, it's probably the best AP prompt they've ever written because it's so broad and open. They're basically telling you, pick any meaning of the book you want and just tell me how one scene helps to show it. And so for me, I focused on that moment that Gatsby realizes that the green light is that magic, is that enchanted object he has lost, rather than going anywhere else. I kind of see the book sort of revolves for me around that, but there's tons of moments that you can pick. Tell me some of them that you picked.
Daisy and Gatsby's meeting at Nick's house.
You focused right before that, Daisy and Gatsby's meeting. Any other scenes?
The vote against the current.
Yeah, you picked the end, the vote against the current. Regardless of what you picked, what's most important is how you make that turn towards how it affects meaning. And that's the big piece here. So as we look, 2 of these will likely show up on your test next week. Yeah, I know I'm making it awkward on purpose. So you definitely have that opportunity to kind of prep and see how to approach this. We're going to put this at the end of the week. This is going to give us a chance to sort of dig. Next week, we're going to begin this research project that's going to have one foot in the book, but another foot on how you see things now. We're going to use the book as sort of a jumping off point. So there's 3 topics. We're going to do it slow rolls. A lot of next week is going to be getting thoughts together and gathering research. The week after will be mostly outlining and drafting. And then we'll move into doing a second draft. But we're also going to do something different with this where I'm going to have you make a Google slide that goes with your paper. And we're going to do, since we all have Chromebooks and cameras, we're going to do a recorded presentation of your topic using the Google slide. So if you've watched the videos where I have like a Google slide and my pictures in the bottom corner, we're going to do something like that as a way to present. That way it's not like you have to all stare at one person while they're up there and that person has to feel like, oh my God, everybody's staring at me. We're going to try this out and see. So we're going to experiment. Anyway, if you will get your